The history of Holyoke is a remarkable tribute to American ingenuity, cooperation, and independence. I am the daughter of Rita Hebert and Donald Grenier, members of two hard-working families that have contributed to Holyoke's success. In 2004, I had the opportunity to write about Holyoke's fascinating history in the Republican newspaper, so I was delighted when Arcadia Publishing asked me to write about Holyoke's legendary men and women. Growing up in Holyoke was an extraordinary experience that included meandering through stunning open spaces like our richly forested parks, pristine reservoirs, the magical mountain park, and the Mount Tom ski area, and of course, attending the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade and the St. Patrick's Road Race. One thing that Holyoke residents all have in common is our ability to laugh and enjoy each other's company. We have a street-smart, shrewd humor that borders on cynical, yet rests on compassion and acceptance. Of course, our good nature could be the result of our sheer numbers. When I attended the Holyoke public school system, there were over 40,000 people living in and around the city. Holyoke experienced its heyday from 1890 to 1920, when the population was close to 60,000 people. I was fortunate to have attended school with students of diverse ethnicities.
Welcome, everybody, to the Edwards Public Library. We're very excited to have Jacqueline Sears with her new book, Legendary Locals of Holyoke, Not Hollywood.
Thanks. Okay, thank you, Barbara. Good evening. It is an honor to be here tonight to highlight some of Holyoke's legendary locals. We're going to be reading profiles, 2 in the 8 chapters. If any of you want to read a profile, please let me know if I haven't already asked you. And also, I brought an extra copy that you can read from. And first of all, I would like to... This is a welcome sign in Holyoke as you come in. It's my first image. The sign you may not seen. This is a sign proudly declares that Holyoke is the home of volleyball. It is located on Northampton Street, adjacent to the famous Yankee Peddler Inn. Another famous landmark, the following image is an Afghan of some of Holyoke's famous landmarks. This beautiful Afghan was used to raise funds for the renovation of the Holyoke Public Library due to Paul Graves, another one of Holyoke's legendary locals in the book. Featured on the Afghan is the City Hall, the Holyoke City Hall, the Canal Industry, the Holyoke Railroad Station, the Holyoke Public Library, the Kenilworth Castle, the Holyoke Soldiers Monument, the YMCA, and the birthplace of volleyball, a carousel horse on the Holyoke merry-go-round, and the Holyoke Dam, the Mount Holyoke Summit House, a Century Lion guarding the Wisteria Hearst Museum, a skier on Mount Tom, and a Citizen of the Year marching in the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade. And I have this Afghan that has kept me warm in the winter. It's wonderful. The next image is, as I alluded to, there's 8 chapters in the book. And they are history makers, intriguing writers, veterans of distinction, remarkable athletes, notable businesses, unique artists dedicated to their community, and trailblazers. This was said by Howard Conant, who was a principal at the Holyoke High School. Holyokers possess an indefinable quality of openness, frankness, and friendliness that sets them apart from people of any other city. First chapter is history makers. A mere copulation of facts presents only the skeleton of history. We do but little for her if we cannot invest in her life, clothe her in habiliments of her day, and enable her to call forth sympathies of succeeding generations. This particular image is in the Holyoke Public Library, and this is on, page 10 of my book, which I shall read the profile. Each image is accompanied by a brief story or profile. So Elizur Holyoke, 1676. The Holyoke family originated from the town of Tamsworth in Warwickshire, England. He moved to Springfield on September 20th, 1640 to marry Mary Pynchon, daughter of William Pynchon, the founder of Springfield. They were the first couple to marry in the new community. In 1642, Holyoke received 10 rods of property from William Pynchon. By 1647, he owned 125 acres, the second largest landowner in Springfield. In 1661, Holyoke was appointed deputy to the General Court, made rank of captain, and was a selectman and deputy of the General Court by 1675. He fought in King Philip's War and was killed by Indians on February 5th, 1676. Holyoke's grandson, Reverend Edward Holyoke, 1689-1769, was the president of Harvard and is a great-grandson of Dr. Edward Augustus Holyoke, 1728-1829, founded the Massachusetts Medical Society. The next one is a map of Ireland, the Irish parish, John Riley, 1674 to 1714, pardon me. Sue Mullery, is going to read the first profile, and I'm sorry, that is on page 11. John Riley. There you go.
Sure. John Riley, 1664 to 1714. Riley and his wife Grace O'Day from Ireland purchased 28 acres north of West Springfield near today's Riverdale Road. The area was called Third Parish as well as North Parish, but the Native Americans called it Ireland Parish. Riley and his wife braved the rough terrain and unpredictable environment, all the while trying to survive in a foreign country. This was courtesy of the Holyoke Public Library.
The next profile, if Deb Popolo, could read that, please, on page 11. The same page, yep. It says Hadley Falls Company on the bottom right.
Hadley Falls Company. The first Hadley Falls Company was organized in 1827 by John Stephen, Warren Chapin, and Alfred Smith. They procured legislative authority to build a wing dam that extended up the Connecticut River to run its looms in the Hamden Mill Company. The second Hadley Falls Company laid out industrial, commercial, and residential areas on its 1,100 acres of land for future development. In 1859, the company went into receivership and was auctioned off for $325,000 to Alfred Smith, who in turn sold the company to the Holyoke Water Power Company, courtesy of the Holyoke Public Library.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is Robert. Oh, all right, so do you want to? Yeah, there you go.
What page?
It is on page 14.
Parsons Rand. In the early 1800s, Minister Parsons Rand taught clergymen Latin and Greek and tutored boys for a minimal fee in the classics and mathematics at the Payson Rand Academy. And that's a courtesy of the Holyoke Street Library.
Right. Thank you so much. Okay, and then John Sheehan, could you please read Clemens Herschel on page 14?
Thank you. It's close.
Thank you. Yeah, he's right below him.
Clemens Herschel, 1842 to 1930. Born in Vienna, Herschel immigrated to Davenport, Iowa in 1850. In 1860, he graduated from Harvard University, where he received his Bachelor's of Science degree from the Lawrence Scientific School. He was a hydraulic engineer from 1879 to 1889 for the Holyoke Water Power Company. He designed a new testing flume called the Venturi meter, which he named after Giovanni Battista Venturi, an Italian scientist of the 18th century who demonstrated the flow of fluids through pipes. Herschel was a member of the Water Industry Hall of Fame and the American Water Works Association, and was awarded the Elliott Crescent Medal from the Franklin Institute. In appreciation of two great workers in hydraulics, courtesy of the Holyoke Public Library.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is Candy. If she would read that, please. If you can say your last name for me, Candy. Iwaniki. And that's for, on page 16, John T. Hickey.
John T. Hickey, 1929-2008. Hickey successfully ran the Holyoke Water Power Company until he retired in 1991. In 1987, Hickey and Angela Wright established a nonprofit group, Friends of the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round. Together, they raised $865,000 to save the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round. Holyoke residents rallied together to raise the needed funds, and donations came in from all over the country. Today, this magnificent merry-go-round is located in Holyoke's Heritage State Park in downtown Holyoke. Hickey not only saved a beloved piece of Holyoke's history, but he also left a legacy of joy and delight for future generations, courtesy of the Holyoke Public Library.
Thank you. Okay, the next chapter, as you can see, Chapter 2, Intriguing Writers. The writer is an explorer. Every step is an advance into a new land. Ralph Waldo Emerson. And the next one is going to Nico. And you're on page 13. You're on page 29.
All right, page 29, you said?
And yep, and that is, pardon me, Mike Burke.
Mike Burke was the city editor of the Holyoke Transcript newspaper before it was closed in 1993. He went on to work for the Springfield Republican, known today as the Republican newspaper, as a city editor for Holyoke. He has astutely written about politics and many other serious topics, including fire and police departments for many years. He is also a knowledgeable, spunky announcer and a chief officer of Western New England amateur boxing, and was instrumental in reviving the Golden Gloves League in Holyoke. In his retirement, he writes a column called More Mike Burke for the Republican newspaper. And in the column, he has a warm, humorous writing style that the community looks forward to reading. He is the recipient of the Outstanding Citizen Award by the St. Patrick's Parade Committee and countless awards and accolades throughout his career.
Great, very good. Good job, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next person is Barbara, which it's, this is Gerald McClellan.
I swear you'll do
who
way
is
better
a
than
wonderful
I did.
man.
She was
That's-
my child librarian. She will do way better than I did.
Thank you.
That's on page 33.
33.
Gerald McClellan, who is a super nice guy, by the way.
Gerald McClellan.
Yes, on page 33.
He graduated from Holyoke High School and earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Economics at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. He attended the St. John's University School of Law and passed the bar in 1960. McClellan was a Massachusetts probate and family court judge for 8 years and practiced family law for over 26 years in Boston. He garnered some of his reference material for his exciting legal thrillers, including Old City Hall, A Permanent Bond, A Silent Cry, and his 2014 book, The Bully, from some of the cases that he presided over.
Thank you. Okay, the next chapter, Chapter 3, Veterans of Distinction. Patriotism is not a short and frenzied outburst of emotion, but the tranquil and steady dedication of a lifetime. So Sue, if you could please read Charlotte Pelletier. Yep, your turn again. I'm just going to recite, go around again. Charlotte Pelletier, and she's on page 40.
Charlotte Pelletier. The daughter of Leon Pelletier of Beacon Avenue, Charlotte Pelletier graduated from Holyoke High School and from Rivier College in Nashua, New Hampshire. In 1942, Pelletier was the first woman to enlist in the Women Accepted for Volunteer Emergency Service, known as the Waves, in Holyoke during World War II. When she returned home from her service, she taught alien education at Holyoke Evening High School for 2 years and was a substitute teacher in the local schools.
Thank you. The next one, if Deb would read again, on page 49, John S. MacKenzie.
John S. MacKenzie, 1886 to 1933. In 1918, during World War I, Mackenzie received a Medal of Honor for saving the lives of his shipmates by safely securing a depth charge, a can filled with explosives, and a fuse that detonates at a preset depth based on hydrostatic pressure. Franklin D. Roosevelt was the acting Secretary of the Navy at the time. MacKenzie Field in Holyoke was named after him, courtesy of the Holyoke War Memorial.
Thank you. The fourth chapter is Remarkable Athletes. So, Bob, could you read the next one, please, sir? And that is
He's
on
wearing a
page
Bruins jersey. That's good. That's good.
57, yeah, 57. Pierce, George, Gerry,
Good
Geran.
balance too.
Page 57. He's the top one on your right. Pierce, George.
Pierce George Geran, 1896 to 1981. Geran was the first player from the United States to make the National Hockey League in 1917-1918. Inaugural season with the Montreal Wanderers. After playing in 4 games with the Montreal Wanderers, the arena was destroyed by a fire and the team disbanded. At the 1920 Summer Olympics in Antwerp, he won a silver medal with the 11th member U.S. hockey team. In 1925, he played in 37 NHL games with the Boston Bruins. He scored 5 goals and 6 points, and that's a courtesy of the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, so the next one is, if Mrs. Sheehan, John, could you please? For Fran Healy.
Yep.
He's on page 59.
This is great. I didn't know we had these famous athletes from around here. Fran Healy, 1946 to the present. He grew up in Holyoke learning to play baseball from his father, Bernard, who played outfield in the Cardinals minor league team in the 1930s. After he graduated from high school, he signed a contract with the Cleveland Indians and earned a history degree from the American International College in the off-season. The Kansas City Royals recognized his agility as a talented catcher and signed him in 1969. He was then traded to the San Francisco Giants, where he won the Western Division title in 1971. In 1976, he played for the New York Yankees and won the American League title and a World Series championship. Since 1978, he has been a sports broadcaster for major networks including the Fox and MSG network in New York, courtesy of the Healy family.
Yes, his lovely, lovely mother. Okay, so the next one is Chapter 5, Notable Businesses. To be successful, you have to have your heart in your business and your business in your heart. So I am up to Candy on page, let's see, Morty is on, actually, I would like to read this one because I interviewed him. Morty Haberman, Morty Hardware Corporation. Morty Haberman, 1929, is the son of Esther Smorgansky and Russian-born Herman Haberman. The Haberman Hardware Corporation has become a local institution. Employees help customers with a smile and the famous Haberman motto, "We got it. If you can't find it, then it's just not available." They've had some hard times over the years, including a devastating fire in 1968. Haberman's son, Hal, the president of the company today, continues his father's distinctive customer service and dedication to the community with a smile and helping hand. The Habermans contribute to the Diabetes Association, courtesy of Morton Haberman. Now, when I went to interview him at his home, he was kind enough, him and his lovely wife, to let me talk to him. In the original picture I took of him, he wasn't smiling, he was just standing there. And I said to Mr. Haberman, I cannot submit this to my editor. Nobody's going to recognize you. And he looked at me and I said, because everybody knows you as smiling and welcoming. And that's what I caught. So the next one is Rafael Fernandez. And I think we're back at Nico. No, sorry, Candy. Candy, pardon me. And he's on page 74.
Rafael Fernandez Family Restaurant. Rafael Fernandez, owner of the Fernandez Family Restaurant on High Street, opened his ever-popular eatery in 1988 to the pleasure of Holyoke residents and surrounding communities. He has raised a hard-working family that has all worked in the restaurant at one time or another, including his daughters Jackie, Ada, and Louis, L-U-Y, Louis. Fernandez donates food to the homeless, especially at Christmas time. Recently, he opened another business in South Hadley, which is solely a banquet space specializing in wedding receptions, at his daughter's Ada's direction. The Fernandez family proudly continues the tradition of bringing authentic Puerto Rican food to the citizens of Western Massachusetts, courtesy of Rafael Fernandez.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is Chapter 6, Unique Artist. One ought every day at least to hear a little song, read a good poem, see a fine picture, and if possible to speak a few reasonable words. So now, Nico, it's your turn again. And
oh my
that
God,
is on
you're going to have me up there again.
That's
After that
page...
last display, I'm embarrassed.
No, you're
All
good,
right.
you're good. So page 79.
Tom Browne, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tom Browne was born in Adams, Massachusetts. His father came to Holyoke to find work when he was a child. After attending Holyoke Public Schools, Tom Browne enrolled in the Hinman's Commercial School to better his bookkeeping skills. Utilizing his newfound accounting skills, he worked for a furniture company for 10 years until his natural whistling talent took him in a whole new direction. In 1892, he initially worked with the Browne brothers in 8 Mills. After a year in the company, he was introduced to J.B. Carroll of Springfield and to Patrick Collins of Boston, who was the Consul General to Great Britain. Soon after, he was contracted to tour through England and Europe and was invited to perform for the King of England, who was the Prince of Wales at the time. He performed throughout Europe, including Germany, France, and Switzerland. When he returned home, he became a member of the Zigzag Company in a booth with Peter and Dan Daly and was in the Trip to Chinatown Company, which made a record-breaking run in the Madison Square Theater in New York. In his later years, he was engaged in vaudeville performances in Western Massachusetts. Browne was a well-liked man in the city of Holyoke, whose engaging whistling still echoes through the streets of Holyoke today and beyond.
Okay, so the next one is Barbara.
Oh, Eva Tanguay.
Yeah, Eva. So she's on page 82.
Eva Tanguay, 1878 to 1947. Born in Marbleton, Quebec, Canada, she came to Holyoke with her family in 1880s. She was discovered after winning a dance and voice contest. She became known as the Queen of the Musical Comedy Stage due to her vivacious and energetic personality. Eventually, she became a Ziegfeld girl, earning $3,500 a week. That's still pretty good, isn't it? In 1905, making her one of the highest paid vaudeville performers at the time. She made a couple of successful silent movies in the 1920s and did well on Broadway, courtesy of the Holyoke Public Library.
Thank you. The next one is Chapter 7, dedicated to their community. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. Okay, so Sue, we're back up to you, as you know, and so we're on, oh, this is another great lady. The Maria Pagan, on page 92.
She's head of the library, right?
She
Yes.
is the director at the
Yes.
Holyoke
Of the
Public
Holyoke
Library.
Library, yeah.
Maria Pagan. Pagan, the director of the Holyoke Public Library, was instrumental in bringing a long overdue $14.5 million renovation project to fruition after working diligently at raising funds through writing grants, initiating public outreach programs, and many other creative projects for 15 years. In doing so, she successfully protected 20,000 important books from succumbing to ruin from dampness and decay. Through Pagan's hard work, tenacity, and foresight, the Holyoke Public Library continues to provide a vital public service to the citizens of Holyoke and Western Massachusetts.
Okay, so the next one is Deb. If you could read this, Honorable John DiNapoli on page 96.
John DiNapoli, 1947 to 1999. John DiNapoli grew up at 11 Northeast Street and went to the former Holy Rosary School, graduating from Holyoke Catholic High School in 1965. After high school, he worked at a paper mill and at Peel's Brewery. He joined the Holyoke Police Department in 1978 in response to his good friend, Officer James Gatsunas' tragic death from a heart attack in 1997 as he was breaking up a fight in the line of duty. On December 22, 1999, this gentle and good-natured man responded to a disturbance call on Walnut Street in Holyoke. Sadly, multiple gunshot wounds from a drug dealer instantly killed him. He was known to be fair and calm and was always called upon to mediate a disturbance and or to mitigate a fight. DiNapoli was the people's cop. He would rather help than arrest a person. He was especially good to the children of Holyoke, helping them to stay on the right path and listening to them when no one else would. His beloved fiancée, Carol Bevan Bogart, said it best in the Republican newspaper. John chose the life of a police officer because he believed that he could make a difference in people's lives. A beautiful bronze monument has been placed in the front of the Holyoke Police Station in his honor. Officer James Gatsunas and Officer John Driscoll, who were also killed in the line of action, also have their names on the monument. The monument depicts DiNapoli sitting with and listening to children. One time, DiNapoli assisted a 15-year-old boy at Dean Vocational High School who got his hand caught in the printing machine in shop class. DiNapoli knelt by his side, and he never left him until the paramedics arrived. In another horrifying incident, he held a water department employee's head up in a collapsed ditch so that the man would not drown until help arrived. He did so much for the entire community. One could count on Officer DiNapoli. He was reliable. He was always present. Courtesy of Carol Bevan Bogart.
The 8th chapter and the final chapter is called Trailblazers. I will not follow where there is a path. I will not follow where the path may lead, but I will go where there is no path, and I will leave a trail. Mariel Strode. Okay, so the next one is Bob. Okay, so Bob, would you read? No, I don't want you to read yours. No, actually, Barbara Bernard on page 100.
You want me to read?
Yeah, can you read? Can you know Barbara, right? Yeah.
Barbara Bernard. The amazing woman is a trailblazer to emanate and respect due to her outstanding 70 years of professional journalism, public service, a good citizenship, a graduate of Mount Holyoke College. She was a copywriter for WHYN Radio, a stringer for the New York Times, and was the first woman in Western Massachusetts to have her own television show, The Barbara Bernard Show, on WHYN TV. She interviewed Judy Garland, Robert Goulet, Merv Griffin, Arthur Fiedler, and many other important figures. She was among a select few women who wrote for the Holyoke Transcript newspaper in the 1950s and found time while raising her children to write copy for some of the New York's finest fashion and food magazines. A dedicated advocate of the Golden Age Club, she was instrumental in helping to bring Holyoke new senior center to fruition. She is a recipient of the esteemed Oldershaw Award for Excellence in Professional Achievement and Community Service, among others well-deserved accolades, including the Valley Press Club's Lifetime Achievement Award, the first to be awarded to a woman, the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee Citizenship Award, and a Christian Charity Award given by the Ancient Order of Hibernians. 6 decades of Bernard's monumental achievements can be viewed at the Holyoke Public Library. Today, she continued to entertain, inform, and reassure people in the Republican newspaper column, courtesy the Republican newspaper.
Thank you, sir. Edward Boruki. John?
Just died.
Yes.
You just
I'd like
died
to say,
yesterday.
Mr. Boruki just
Yeah,
passed
I'm
away.
not sure what page.
Yeah, he's on page 113, and he passed away on Saturday.
Wow, this is quite an honor to be reading Edward Boruki's
Thank you for
story just after he passed away, and so many of us knew him for many years here in Southampton. Edward Boruki, 1920 until this past week. Edward Boruki was born and raised in Holyoke. He was the 4th of 7 children who resided on Lyman Street in Holyoke. He graduated from Holyoke High in 1939 and worked for the Springfield Daily News Company in distribution until he worked at the Armory in Springfield. He enlisted in the Navy in 1940 and was stationed in Hawaii on the USS Helena CL-50 at dock number 1010 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. As the Chief Petty Officer, Boruki shut the watertight doors as he heard countless torpedoes, men screaming, and massive guns on the ship trying to shoot down the Japanese planes. He is extremely lucky to be here, especially since a torpedo had destroyed the battle station he had been at 30 seconds after he left it. He was given the grim task of carrying 33 of his deceased comrades off the ship. He returned home to earn his Bachelor of Arts degree from American International College with the assistance of the GI Bill. He taught in the Springfield and Chicopee school systems. Boruki worked for 2 years to have a bridge named in honor of the Pearl Harbor veterans. The bridge was named Pearl Harbor Veterans Memorial Bridge in Southampton.
Pardon me, I'm sorry, it's in Easthampton. I made a mistake. I just want to clarify that.
Okay, that's the one on Route 5, right? Yep. He also was the commander of the Southampton American Legion Post number 168 and the district commander for Franklin and Hampton Convention in Hawaii, Chicago, and Miami. Asked why he continued to talk about the attack on Pearl Harbor and why he proudly wears his uniform, he says, he wants people to never forget about the 2,390 brave men, including his shipmates, that were killed, and the 1,178 men that were wounded on that fateful day 73 years ago. Courtesy of Edward Boruki.
Oh, there you are. You got away from me. Okay, I'm going to read yours, Bob.
Okay.
Because I do want to say, Bob has been really helpful all these years whenever I've done, I used to write a column for the History of Holyoke, the Republican, called A Moment in Time. And so whenever I would go and ask Bob a question, he always knew so much about Holyoke. And I'm so happy and proud that he's here tonight. So, Robert Schwobe, 1930. Schwobe retired as a Hampshire County Corrections Officer in his late 50s due to a heart ailment. Though he went home, he did not stay home. He got his walking stick and started hiking on the Mount Tom Range. He did not hike on the beaten path. He set out to find unusual artifacts that were hidden in the fields and ridges on Mount Tom. A well-versed historian and gentleman, he researched and documented information about the Mount Tom Range for 30 years. His impressive collection of 13 historical biomes are being stored in a beautiful wooden cabinet with glass doors that Thomas Scanlon and Kurt Pierce, members of the maintenance team at the Massachusetts Conservation of Recreation Department, constructed for the public to view. They even carved his name on the front upper face of this piece of beautiful furniture. One can also view informational CDs that Schwobe has researched and narrated pertaining to the Mount Tom State Reservation. He was also involved in helping to install the B-17 Memorial on Mount Tom, courtesy of Robert Schwobe, and so much more. So I would like to say thank you all for coming. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. But I also wanted to thank everybody for helping me to tell the stories of Holyoke's legendary locals. Thank you.
Can I add something, Jackie?
Yes, sir, please.
A lot of people here that doesn't have your book don't realize that there's about, what, 200 people that you feature in that book? So we just scanned a very small portion of them today. But the book is crammed full of wonderful information.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
What inspired you to put together this magnificent book?
Well, I wrote for the Republican. I did the Moment in Time series for a couple of years, and Arcadia Publishing actually contacted me and asked me if I would write this book.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're glad that you did.
Well, thank you.
How did you choose the subjects that you were going to write about? How did they make the cut or not when you were going through?
Well, that was really tough. Arcadia did give me some names, but then I had to, I grew up in Holyoke, so I know a lot of incredible people. And then I did some research too, and people told me about other people. And when I do readings, they tell me the people I should have included, because I have 160 people here, but there's so many more people I would have loved to include, but my editor only allowed me this amount. Yeah.
Jacqueline, the senator, obviously he could not be here. He was coming back from a formal session today, but he wanted me to be here and to express the gratitude that he had for you, kind of representing the people of Western Massachusetts and putting them in a book and, showing how important Western Massachusetts is, not only to the state, but to the formulation of this entire country. And, each person that you've shown, from top to bottom has always had some sort of, some sort of institution or, something that would help to make Massachusetts and the United States of America what it is. So, again, thank you very much.
So, okay, great. Well, thank you also for coming.
What about, are you selling some books, Jackie?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I do have some books if you'd like to purchase a book.
And have it autographed, right?
And I'll sign them too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Another clap for you.
Thank you.